I want to welcome everybody to the 14th Annual Data, AI, and Analytics Summit. My name is Scott Smith. I am your host for today, so I'll be kicking us off and closing us out, too, at the end of the day. So hope you all stick around. I know it's supposed to be a beautiful afternoon, so don't look out the window, and hope you stick around all day. Okay, so I work for a company called WIT, or WIT. WIT stands for whatever it takes, Web Information Technologies, kind of whatever you want to call us. We go by WIT or WIT, but we're a data and analytics and AI consulting company, actually about a mile away from here. So this is home base for us, so we're always happy and excited to have the event here at the Troy Marriott. If you've been to the event before, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's brand new plushy carpet, which is great for my feet. I love it. Also brand new tables and chairs, so they spent a lot of money, and that's why the cost was just a little bit more this year. But glad to have everybody come out today. So what do? We do data and AI strategy, data architecture modernization if you're going to move your data to the cloud or you want to harmonize data from a bunch of different locations into one data lake. We're happy to help out with that. We do custom application development. We're doing a lot of vibe coding experiments and kind of sort of production experiments with new ways of coding with Claude. And very happy and excited to talk about that if you're interested. We also have a managed services and project staffing business. We've been doing that for about 30 years. So always happy to have conversations around how we can help you and help your teams do more. And last but not least, we have a new service model called Data Department in a Box. If you stop by the WIT booth out there in the lobby, our friend Tim will tell you all about it. Okay, so agenda for today is going to be a morning keynote that I'll introduce in just a couple slides here. Also, we'll have a closing keynote. We're going to do a panel this year. I'll be moderating a panel with 3 data leaders. It should be really exciting. We have 4 concurrent tracks, and it's all co-located in the space this side of the restaurant bar. We used to do some events all the way on the other side of the hotel, but we've decided to consolidate to this space this year. We'll have a plated lunch in this room, so please come back for lunch. And at the end of the day, we'll do closing raffles. So we've got a number of kind of prizes based on the things that we're doing as WIT, but also our vendor sponsors. They're going to be giving away some prizes as well. If you haven't already, please download the conference app. Everybody should have an email. You can scan the QR code. It'll give you user ID and password, and you can have access to the attendees, the sessions, the session maps, the descriptions, and all that good sort of thing. If you have any questions, just grab somebody in a blue shirt. We can help you out. Thanks always to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, wouldn't be able to pull this off. We're very happy to have some old friends and some new ones this time around. So please stop by the sponsor booths and try to see what they're up to. Every year, I'm sure that our sponsors want to meet with as many people as possible. So to encourage that, we have a contest where if you visit 10 or more of the sponsors and get scanned by them, your name will go into a fishbowl, and we'll draw a prize at the end of the day for everybody that stopped by 10 or more sponsors. The sponsors, like I mentioned before, they'll also be giving out gifts at the end. We kind of have a culture of must be present to win, so please stick around if you're interested in seeing what the sponsors have to offer. I'm sure that they're going to be telling you all about what goodies they have at the respective booths. So if you do get 10 or more sponsors, we're going to give you a $25 Amazon gift card. If you can't receive the gift card, we can send it to your charity of choice. Just let us know. We also have a conference app leaderboard contest. So first place will get a $100 Amazon gift card, and second and third place will also get a $50 gift card. I think last year we had somebody interact with it 1,000 times. I think they wrote an RPA bot or something like that. So get creative, I guess, but we'll see at the end of the event for that. And then as we're doing the final keynote, we'll be distributing feedback forms. We started this event 14 years ago as kind of a labor of love. We wanted to have an event that was Detroit, Michigan based, and so we feel that this is your conference, not our conference. And so we're always interested in feedback. We've made a bunch of changes over the years to accommodate some of the great ideas that our attendees have had, and I'm happy to receive them. If you do fill out the form, we'll give you a ticket. We'll put that in the fishbowl and have another drawing. So a lot of giveaways at the end of the day. Random housekeeping things. So do the things, silence your cell phone, bathrooms, coat check is over there. You probably have already figured that out. And if you need any help, there's about a dozen of the WIT blue shirts roaming around the conference. Just grab one of us and we'll be happy to help out. Okay. So I want to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. John Thompson. John is an international technology executive with over 38 years of experience in the fields of data, advanced analytics, and artificial intelligence. John is the Vice President of Product Analytics at CCC Intelligent Solutions, where his responsibilities include designing, developing, and deploying innovative ways to integrate data, deliver insights, and apply predictive AI, generative AI, and causal AI to CCC products and services. John is also a lecturer at the University of Michigan in the School of Information and the Ross Business School, where he teaches classes based on his books and subjects of AI and building and managing analytics teams. He was recently named an Innovation Fellow for the Center of Academic Innovation. Previously, John was the global head of AI at EY. His role was to actively lead design, development, implementation, and use of innovative AI solutions, including GenAI, traditional and classical AI, causal AI across all of EY's service lines and functions for EY's clients. I want to welcome John.
Thank you, Scott. Very kind of you. Thank you. Go Iggy. Thanks, guys. I was telling the AV team that I like Iggy Pop, and if there's anything they could do to incorporate Lust for Life in this, I would be very grateful. So, I grew up in Marlette, Michigan, in the Thumb area. 43 and 56. If you go anywhere in the world and you hold up your hand, they know you're from Michigan. So every time I sit there and listen to someone, read off my bio, I'm like, it's just too long. It's way too long. But if you've been doing this for 40 years, your bio tends to get long. So I've spoken to a number of you before I came up on stage. And what I said basically is that whatever you're facing right now, whatever challenges you're running into, I have probably screwed that up and have tried to figure out a way to do it better. So we can make this as interactive as you want. I do lots and lots of keynote speeches all over the world, and the ones that are most interesting for the audience and for me is where people ask questions. So I'm going to go through my content. I'm going to talk about the different slides and the different things that I think are of interest to you. But please interrupt me at any time. There'll be room at the end for Q&A, but let's not save all our questions for that, because usually you have a question and then you'll start thinking about you're hungry or you want a Mountain Dew, or you got to remember to pick up your kid's retainer or whatever it is, and you'll forget the question. So let's just jump into the questions whenever. And I think Scott took the clicker, so I was digging in my pockets. I'm like, how can I do this in a rather subtle way? But there's no subtle to that. All right, so green. There we go. So as Scott said, I'm a professor at the University of Michigan. I teach classes on my books on building analytics teams, and on the path to AGI, to artificial general intelligence. I teach in the Ross Business School. One of my students is right there, Mark. He attended some of the sessions that I did, and worked out really well. I have a company called The World of Analytics. You can go and check out the website. I've written 5 best-selling books on data, AI, and analytics. So you can check those out on Amazon. And I've been doing this, as I said, for 38 years. So what are we going to walk through today? We're going to walk through the history of AI. We're going to talk about AI today, tomorrow, in the future. And we're also going to talk about how you can improve your skills around AI. like I said, I talked to maybe 7 or 8 groups of people and individuals before I came up here. And 2 of the conversations were just bipolar opposite. It was really interesting. I was talking to one young guy, and he was like, yeah, I just started a job, and I've been throwing data into Claude, and it's really been helping me understand, customer acquisition and customer sat metrics and things of that nature. I'm like, that's great. Excuse me for a second. Sorry about that. And the other conversation was, our data is such a mess, we're nowhere near AI. We don't know what to do, we're not going to use AI to jump into it. So, show of hands, whose approach is like the young man's? We're going to dump all our data into AI and do things with it. Raise your hands. Who's doing that? Small group of people. Who's on the other side? Our data is such a mess, we don't want to throw it into AI at all. A few brave souls raising their hands there. It's about an equal distribution there on that. So what I tell people when I'm consulting with them is I counsel the former approach. But let's be clear on how the former approach can work. If you're taking your data and you're dumping it into a public model, whether that's Mistral or OpenAI or Claude or any provider, you are open sourcing that data. So when you put it in that model, it is now publicly available information. When I was at EY, I got a call from a team that happened to be in Japan. And EY, some people think Ernst & Young, ENY, EY, it's all the same company. They do consulting, tax, and audit work. So anybody in here work in the tax area or touch the tax data from your company? We got a young lady down here in the front. Do you want that to be in the public domain? No, you don't. As a matter of fact, that's some of the most guarded information in a corporate environment. So this team said, we've collected all the information, we've got it ready to go, we're ready to dump it into ChatGPT and start working on it. And I literally turned, your face is perfect. Get a picture of that reaction. Yeah, and I went white. And I'm like, oh my God. And I thought, I know they've already done it. It's already happened. This is a lawsuit. So I just sheepishly said, have you already put it into ChatGPT? And they're like, no. But as soon as you tell us, yes, we're ready. We're ready to push the button. You're our AI guy, and you're going to give us guidance, and we're going to know what to do. And I said, well, let me tell you what's going to happen after you push the button. Number 1, you're going to get fired. Number 2, you're going to get sued. Number 3, you're going to jail. And you could hear crickets on the other end of the Zoom session. And they're like, what? And I said, yeah. That would be taking all the tax records for the last 10 years for this large corporate entity in Japan and just giving it to everybody in the world. So let's not do that. All right? Everybody clear on that? Heads nodding? Yes, don't do that? Okay, got it. But what we did at EY is that we built, and Forrester, Gartner, IDC, I think we're all aware of these companies, had told us, each of them told us that the environment that me and my team built was the world's largest private, secure GenAI environment that had ever been built. It's served and still serves 300,000 people every day. So what we did is we built a GenAI environment in Azure, Microsoft, and we secured it, and we made sure that it was private. And what we did is that we allowed and enabled every one of those 300,000 employees to put anything into it. They could put all that tax records, they could put in their dog's feeding schedule, they could put in their kids', soccer, team and all that other kind of stuff, and it was secure. So one of the things that you should be thinking about when you're dabbling or getting into or, extending your reach into AI is how are you going to make it foolproof and safe for all your employees? Because what is one of the benefits of making an environment safe? Anybody got any ideas? Shout them out. People take risks. Great. Anybody else? Better to manage? Competitive advantage. Thank you very much. Anybody over here? Is this just shy side of the room? No one's going to speak. Security and protection? Yeah, absolutely. What's that? Risk management. Very good. And that brings up another point. When we were building this system for EY, I spent months with risk management, data security, privacy, and the legal team. Most people say, well, didn't you spend a lot of time with tech? Like, no. It really had nothing to do with the technology. The technology was the easiest part of it. We had to get the rest of the organization on board before we could do anything else. Why would I spend months with those functions? Because any one of those functions is a governance function. Anybody could have said, shut it down at any time. So I asked the EVPs and C-level executives that own those functions one question. What do I have to do for you to say yes to this system? And it's interesting because they were all very clear. They were all very clear. Legal, you can't do this. You know, they all built these little boxes. And like, if you stay in this box, you're good. Legal had a box, data privacy had a box, InfoSec had a box. So I just laid them all over top of each other like a Venn diagram, or you could call it a circle if that works better in your head. And I'm like, okay, if I stay in this area, I'm good. So we built the system, made it available to people. What do you think is the one thing, the one change that we made related to data that drove adoption through the roof? Ideas? Masking. Good response. Say it again. Access. Anybody else? We stored nothing. So when you wrote a prompt and you sent it into the model and you got a response, when that session ended, everything got erased. Why did we do that? Because the legal department, in their imminent wisdom, said anything that you do in that chain, prompt, response, any of that, is discoverable. And if you don't know what that means, it can be used against you in a court. All right? So the consulting side of the shop was like, we want everything. Could you imagine seeing 300,000 people's prompts and responses and that kind of stuff? We thought, well, that would be interesting. That would be a gold mine for someone like me. I would love to have that stuff. But then I thought about it. We want the system to be adopted. We want people to use it. If they're afraid that we're going to see what they're doing, they're not going to do it. They're not going to be as free with the system as they could be otherwise. So, and this is a little piece of free consulting advice. When you go, if you have an Azure or Microsoft-based GenAI environment, they have a system, a subsystem that's for fraud and abuse, all right? And that system stores all prompts and responses for at least 30 days, all right? So we had to go to, I think it was the chief legal officer of Microsoft, and demand that they erase our information from that subsystem, all right? So we guaranteed that everything was erased. So it's always good with any vendor to ask at least 3 times. We'd like to have everything erased. Oh, it's all done. We'd like to have everything erased. Oh, we forgot. We could keep a copy in the fraud and abuse system. No, you can't do that. You got to erase that too. So after the first year, or the first 11 months, we measured adoption of that system. And I'll say, this was the most widely adopted system I had ever built in 40 years. How many people, as a percent, adopted and used this system on a regular basis? Just shout out a number. 40? 15? 92. You're looking very thoughtful. 100%. I love you. Who over here? 8? 80%. You two are very close. 99.8%. We had 299,282 unique users on the system. So, if you want a system to be adopted, I think we're all aware of this, but until you actually learn it, it's hard to get it in your head. If you make it safe, you don't put anything out there that's going to incriminate anyone, and you make it easy to use, people will adopt it. What a surprise. All right, so let's go on. So when I was talking to some of the people, some people not in this room, but over the last week or two, many of the people were coming up to me and saying, should I become a plumber? And they were serious. And the first couple of times people asked me, they said, what do you think about, I'm a system engineer, I'm a lead engineer, I'm an architect, computer architect. What do you think, should I go back to school and become an electrician? Should I go back to school and become a plumber? And at first I was gobsmacked. I didn't even know how to answer that question. I'm like, you can't be serious. But they were. So the Financial Times put this article out last week. So I looked at the picture. I'm like, well, I got to clip that. I'm going to have that in my presentation. So what do you think they said? They always put out very reasoned approaches to articles. And their article basically said, if you have graduated from college, it doesn't make any sense for you to become a plumber. But if you haven't gone to college yet, it might make sense for you to become a plumber. So what does that say? What it says to me is that we have a misperception of the value of technologists. I like the idea of vibe coding. I like the idea of using tools and technologies to put together POCs, proof of concepts, and pilots, and doing things quickly. But my personal experience does not show that vibe coding or using coding agents, at least at this point in time, is productive and accurate enough to build highly complicated, sophisticated systems that are mission critical. So what does that say? What's the takeaway from that point? We will still need developers, engineers, architects, people who understand technology. So don't quit your day job and become a plumber, I guess is the bottom line. So here's another article that came out on Medium. So after a year of vibe coding, AI still can't replace expertise and experience. Everybody feeling this at this point? Everybody feeling okay about being in technology? Because I tell you, when I'm teaching at Michigan, and I do end up with some undergraduates in class, they're slightly concerned about their future. But who do you think is even more concerned and talks to me in a more excited way, I guess is a way to say it? Parents. I'm in a really unusual position or a unique position that I work with the Mark Cuban Foundation on AI boot camps for underserved children. And I started a boot camp in the Pontiac area about 3 years ago with UWM. And I've also started 2 boot camps in Chicago, 1 in LA, 1 in Philadelphia. So through that, I get to talk to students that are like 14 or 15 or sometimes as young as 12. And I also present at many board meetings, so I talk to people who are in their 80s. So I like to say I'm talking to people that are between 8 and 80. So I hear a lot of reactions about AI. And really what it comes down to is, do you have the skills to critically think and think through situations, or are you outsourcing your thought processes to AI? All right? I created a class at the University of Michigan. It's online, and the title is Improving Your Critical Thinking Skills While Using GenAI. So there's a debate out there, and I'd like to see a show of hands on this. How many people are actively discouraging their children or nieces or nephews from going into a liberal arts education? One brave soul raises his hand. Two or three people raise their hands. How many people actively think that we're at the end of the liberal arts education? It's okay if you think that. That's fine. I kind of tend to believe that myself. I have two children. They're both adults at this point. They've gone through education. One went to the University of Michigan. One went to University of Illinois, and both went through engineering programs. I'm biased. You know, I believe understanding math, science, and critically thinking through your problems is, you know, a really good skill to have. That's not to say that a liberal arts education doesn't give you that. Really what you need to be is an adaptable, intelligent, critical thinker. That's what we need today. And I hear people saying, well, you know, I'll just throw it into Claude. You can throw a lot of great things into Claude, and Claude does really good stuff, but you still have to use your wetware, all right? So let's dive a little bit into the history of AI so we understand it better than most people. So AI actually started in the 1940s. Alan Turing in the UK was the first person to really talk about the term artificial intelligence. The sad thing about it is that Alan never wrote any of this stuff down, and he never submitted any papers. So we anecdotally know he was thinking about it, but we don't know from a documented perspective what his thoughts were. So anybody aware of the Dartmouth Summer Project that happened in 1956? Raise your hand if you're aware of that. A couple people, few people. If you're interested in AI, and I think most people are at this point in technology, I recommend that you go out and read. You can just go out and search in your favorite search engine, Dartmouth Summer Project 1956. And the document will come up. It's a PDF. And if you read that document, it basically lays out everything that is AI today. All right? So it took us, well, next year will be 70 years. It took us 70 years to realize what they had postulated in the late 50s. All right? So we've gone through a bunch of different things. I'll go quickly through this, mostly at the top line I'll talk about. We've had a number of AI winters. Anybody aware of that term, AI winter? A couple folks. Mostly people that have the gray hair at the temple like me. I hold out and firmly believe that those AI winters are all due to symbolic AI. Anybody know what symbolic AI is? Symbolic AI is rules-based systems, rules that we hand code. Now, those systems are very powerful, but they're not flexible, they're brittle, they don't scale well, and they're usually limited to what you know at the time. So we went through 3 eras, one in the 70s, one in the 80s, one in the 90s, where expert systems or symbolic AI was overloaded, the hype was there, they never delivered, people were bummed out, investment dried up, those kind of things. So we went through those different cycles. You can see my little picture there. That's where I became involved in AI. I tested the first version of IBM's neural network utility back in the 80s, the early 80s, as a matter of fact. So I've been involved in this for quite some time, and I think it's really amazing. So as we come, moving forward, ChatGPT has been out for 3.5 years. Simple agents and intelligent agents are out there. How many people are building agents right now? Okay. How many people are using Copilot Studio to do that? How many people are using Microsoft's agent framework? Anybody else using a different agent framework? Crew? This guy's done it all. You should be up here. That's great. So we'll talk about agents as well. So, we've had 70 years of AI. How many people were aware this has been around that long? Most people think, we got a few people, A young lady back there. That's impressive. Well done, you. I went to a restaurant in Berkeley last night, and I really enjoyed the food. It was a British Indian restaurant, but man, I am so dry this morning. I think they loaded her up with salt pretty heavily. I just can't seem to get enough water. All right, AI today. So most people, in this conversation so far, we've been talking probably 90% about GenAI. That's all fine and good. But functional or foundational predictive AI is what we've been working on for 70 years. Clustering, classification, Markov models, decision trees, all those different things. Generative AI is actually a derivative of foundational AI because generative AI is all neural networks, all right? A lot of people think there's some kind of magic in GenAI. There's really no magic in GenAI. GenAI is just a neural network that we jam the entire internet into. I remember when GenAI came out 3.5 years ago, we were a few months into it. Does anybody remember the term emergent properties? Anybody? No? One person. All right, I remember I was in a very important meeting with my boss and my boss's boss. My boss's boss at the time was the CTO of EY. So emergent properties had just been talked about, and Nicola, great guy, love Nicola, he's wonderful, went off on this just dissertation on the magic of generative AI. And I was just sitting there cringing, holding my fists under the table and all that kind of stuff. So we got out of the room and we're walking down the hallway and he goes, "How far off from reality was I?" I'm like, you were with Alice in Wonderland, dude. You were so far away from reality, it was amazing. So really, emergent properties were found out to be nothing more than dead ends in neural networks. They're just, things that we just never ever thought about. So emergent properties never really existed. Anybody work with Causal AI? No? Nobody? Okay. So Causal AI is a very interesting family of AI, and I suggest you spend a little time researching it. There's a gentleman named Judea Pearl. Anybody heard of Judea? He's a professor at UCLA. He's in his mid-80s. He created an entirely new branch of calculus called do calculus. All right? So Causal AI, everything that's gone before, foundational, generative, all that kind of stuff, is all based on correlation. How many people love statistics in undergraduate? Wow, that's more than, I did not love it. I endured it, but I didn't love it. But everything that we do in AI is based on probabilities. It's all statistics. I mean, there's no magic, there's no surprise there. But Causal actually allows you to dig a little deeper. It's still probability-based, but at the heart of it, you can actually get to X causes Y with a high degree of certainty. The problem with Causal AI is that most of it is based on directed acyclic graphs, all right? And directed acyclic graphs is just a fancy way of saying you've mapped, the causal tree of what's going on in this area. Directed acyclic graphs are very hard to write and very hard to understand if they're accurate, all right? One of the great things about GenAI is it has ingested most of what we know about causality. Now, all of us understand causality at some level. The clouds show up, rain comes, do clouds cause rain? No, not really. But, we think about these things this way. And when you actually start to mathematically model causality, it gets very complicated. But the great thing about GenAI ingesting most of the rules we know about causality is you can ask GenAI in plain English to generate a directed acyclic graph about what you're interested in, and it'll do a pretty good job on it. So GenAI is actually helping us get to Causal AI. All right? Clear so far? Clear as mud? All right. So just some examples on predictive AI based on the past 75 years of the history in our village. How many structure fires have happened in 2026? You may say, these examples are kind of unusual. Well, I did a bunch of work with our local fire department in looking at fires and different things like that, and we loaded a lot of the information into a private GenAI environment, and it worked out really well. The fire chief actually has to write an annual report every year, which of course he hates because he's a fireman. He's not an author. So I was like, well, why don't we have GenAI write your annual report for you and then put it out on the internet and let anybody rewrite the report any way they want with GenAI. And it's turned out to be a huge success. Who do you think interacts with his annual report the most? Just shout out. It's people that live in the village. Most people outside the village don't even know it's there. It's a village just north of Evanston in Chicago. Who do you think interacts with it? Citizens. What's that? Insurance. That's actually quite clever. I never thought of that. Citizens, very good. That's true, but let's narrow it down a little bit. Any other ideas? Kids. Fourth graders. That's who interacts with it. Fourth graders go in and rewrite that report all the time. Why fourth graders do it? I don't know. I don't know why third graders don't, fifth graders don't, but fourth graders do. I think it's fabulous to rewrite the fire chief's annual report, and they seem to really love it. So, Causal AI, based on the fatalities that have occurred in the past 10 years, what are the 4 primary causes of death in cardiothoracic surgery in our hospitals? The reason I put that in there is that I want people to start thinking about AI and AI applications beyond, marketing and manufacturing and supply chain and pricing. I don't know did anybody do any light stalking of me before, you came into here, check my LinkedIn profile and things I've done? A couple people? Yeah, just a few. That's good. When I was at Dell, we built an AI-based system, which was an early agent, and it was hooked up to the sensors on a person's body when they were being operated on for gastrointestinal surgeries. So we collected all their vital signs from the sensors. We mapped out the room, temperature, humidity, different things like that. And then we predicted what the likelihood would be of post-surgical sepsis. Anybody had a family member that's experienced sepsis post-surgery? It's not fun. No. I mean, these numbers are wrong. They're directionally correct, but they're not accurate down to the dollar. In this hospital system, to do an appendectomy, I think was like $250,000. What do you think it would cost to treat post-surgical site sepsis from the same surgery if it happened? $750? No more answers needed. Perfectly correct. So $250,000 to do an appendectomy, $750,000 to treat sepsis. So it's a big deal. So we, over 3 years, knocked down the incidence of sepsis in post-surgical settings by 57%. So what would happen is that surgeons going through the surgery get to a certain point. When the model had enough information, it popped up a number. And then it had a description next to it on how to close the surgery. If the risk was low, sew it up, you're done. If it was higher, do a few additional steps. If it was really high, use this really expensive vacuum closure system. So I bring this up just to outline the different families or pillars of AI, but also to illustrate that you can do really interesting things with AI in places that you typically don't see it. All right? So healthcare is something that most people really don't spend too much time on. Large language models, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. We've already talked most of it already. We've already covered this stuff. So, a lot of conversation about large language models. And large language models aren't the only models in GenAI. Large action models, reasoning models, psychological models. Has anybody encountered a large psychological model yet? No? There's a company out there, it's Canadian, called Receptivity, and the last word or the last letter is an I. Go check it out. It's really interesting. What it does is it allows you to take any email or text conversation or direct messages or whatever it is and put that into their model, and that model then tells you what is the psychological state of the person sending it to you. The person's lying to you. They're trying to mislead you. They're trying to take advantage of you. They're being duplicitous in their remarks. Really intriguing stuff. You know, so you get emails and you look at it and go, what's Tim trying to do here? Dump it in that model, and it's pretty accurate on what Tim's motivations are. So we've had, how many people here have been working with models that are a mixture of experts? One. Okay. Did you build your own mixture of experts environment? Okay, a couple people, yeah, cool. Really great stuff. Mistral, French company, were the first person to pioneer a mixture of experts. A mixture of experts is you have an orchestrator model, so most people think they're sending in information into the large language model, which it is a large language model, but it's just a model that understands all the models behind it, all right? So you send in your prompt, that orchestrator tears it apart, sends it to a text model, an image model, a mathematical model, a psychological model, gets all the results back, puts it together, and sends you the response. Whether you know it or not, everybody that's using publicly available models is using a mixture of experts environment. Everybody is using it. It's the way that these models are going to scale. So a large language model is a monolithic model. You send in a prompt, it activates 10 million of the billion neurons that are in there. It's pretty expensive. I mean, how many people have started to have a little bit of tightness in your chest about how much your token costs are going up? Yeah, a few people. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're sending in lots and lots of prompts, your bills are just going to go through the roof. So mixture of expert is a way to break that down so smaller numbers of models are actually used. All right, we'll talk about agents in a moment. Governance policies. How many people in the room are concerned about how they're going to govern GenAI and agentic workflows? You got to come up here, man. You're the dude. You're doing everything. So yeah, governance is a tricky area. And you know how long I've been doing this. And almost, I would say, for 36 of those 38 years, I have scoffed at governance. You know, I'm all about innovation. I'm all about integrating data. I'm all about trying to figure out what the future is. Governance to me has always just been an annoying, thing in the background. Well, we don't have that luxury anymore. We have to govern what we do. Sad day for me. But what I've figured out, after working at EY, which is probably one of the most governed firms in the world, is that governance isn't that hard. All right? If you govern your employees, and you do, you have a code of conduct, you have rules, you have procedures, you have policies, you have all these documents that say what you can and can't do. You can't steal, you can't cheat, you can't lie, there's lots of things you're not supposed to do. So, if you take all that information that you have, you probably have it in digital form already. It's probably in Word documents and PDFs and SharePoint sites and Excel files and all that other kind of stuff. If you simply take that information and put it into a graph database, a vector database, a relational database, a NoSQL database, and wrap that around your agents and your agentic workflows and your models, you will have an active and effective governance structure. Does that make sense? People don't understand that? All right? So while I always get a little creeped out, and it happens quite a bit. Not that I get creeped out by a lot of things, but this does creep me out, is that when I speak in these forums and people start talking about, well, I have a model, and I've named it Debbie, and I work with her a lot, and she's really wonderful, and she's always there for me, and she answers all my questions, and she's really nice. I'm thinking about taking her out for dinner. I'm like, you need help. These are just computer systems. They're just models. We should not be anthropomorphizing these models. That's just a bad thing to do. Now, with all that said, you should conceive and consider a model does the same roles and the same work as people do. Don't call it Debbie, don't call it John, don't call it Tim, don't give it any name whatsoever. I don't even like that they call it Claude. That's just strange. But if you actually think of governance through the lens of how you govern your employees, you can effectively govern your models, all right? And the one thing people always, like, oh my God, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. Well, we as systems professionals know that if you build a model and it's going to take an action, what's the one thing that you could do that never fails? You can tell the model it has to ask permission before it acts. It has to ask a person if it can act. So it's very simple. You wrap the models and the agents with the governance that you already have, and if you're concerned about an action, have the model ask a person for the first 50 times it does it, all right? Then you get an idea. Okay, the model tends to move towards spending $46 on this transaction, whatever it is, $46,000 or whatever. Have the model ask a purchasing person if it can spend the money, or ask you if it can spend the money. So these things are easily done. They're just wrapped in the feeling of some kind of mystery or some kind of, unknowable thing that's out there. We are information management professionals. If it is unknowable, then we shouldn't worry about it. Everything we do is documented, digital, and useful. Everything that we do in all the flavors of AI, GenAI, Predictive AI, Causal AI, is all around information. The great thing about GenAI and the precursor to that, natural language processing, is it took us out of the realm of structured information and brought us into the realm of unstructured or text or images or videos. For the bulk of my career, if it wasn't in a spreadsheet, we didn't think it was real because we didn't have the tools to analyze it. So now with NLP and GenAI, it's all out there. So I started talking about this concept of a nested prompt, I guess, two and a half years ago. Everybody understand that a large language model is governed by its system prompt? Is that a concept that anyone in the room doesn't understand? I don't see anybody brave enough to say they don't understand that. All right, well, I'll go on as if everybody does understand it. So the system prompt governs what the model does and what it can, and mostly what it can't do. If someone asks about self-harm or suicide, do not respond. Or if someone asks about building a nuclear bomb, do not respond. Or respond with some kind of canned response, like, I can't respond about that, or whatever it is. So models, ergo, models are governed by prompts, all right? So most people think, oh, I write a prompt and I send it in and I get a response back. We all understand that. Most people, especially executives, are there any executives in the room? No, okay. Well, I'm gonna offend no one with these remarks then. All right. So most executives they're the worst offenders. They use GenAI like a search engine. What is the capital of Michigan? That's not really hard to figure out. That's a search. But prompting is exactly the opposite of search. Everybody's aware of the broad topic of AI hallucinations and all that conversation about that. AI hallucinations happen because, for the most part, the prompts are not broad enough. There's not enough context in the prompt. So if you take the class that I built at Michigan, the one that's online on Coursera and Michigan Online about improving your critical thinking while using GenAI, the primary premise in that class is cognitive offloading. What can you cognitively offload? Things that are mundane, things that are routine, things that you do over and over and over again. So what I advocate in that class is that you build a personal prompt library, and the prompt that you get when you sign up for that class is N pages long. How long do you think that prompt is? 8 pages. Anybody else? The first version, it was 17 pages long. and I cut it down to 9. Very close. Very good. So what it does is it says, okay, I want to do X, and I want these sources, the New York Times, the Financial Times, Le Monde, these websites, these scientists. I want it to be written in the tone of a professor from the University of Michigan. I want you to verify all the sources. I want you to verify this. I want you to verify that. All the things that you would normally have to do to produce a nice, solid piece of work, outsource it. Because you really don't need to do that stuff. You do it over and over and over again, and it probably takes up so much of your time. It's probably 40 to 60% of every project. So if you could outsource 40 to 60% of every project to AI and have it at your fingertips at the, within an hour, why wouldn't you do that? That's what we want people to be doing. We want you to cognitively offload all the routine, boring, mundane things to AI and have AI bring that back to you. AI is very good at collecting and summarizing and predicting. What are people very good at? Judgment, discernment, understanding their jobs. So let's not look at AI as if it's a problem, it's an opportunity. Right? So these nested prompts are one way you can do that. I'm not saying you have to take my class. I'm not saying anything like that. You can go online and figure this out. There's a whole area that came out about a year ago. There's a flurry of papers written about it. It's called context engineering. All right? That's kind of like prompt engineering on steroids. All right? So if you want to do some research on that, you can do that on your own. Some AI limitations. Limitations about how creepy this picture is. I generated this with AI. I mean, how many misspellings and how weird is this picture? It's about as bad as it gets, all right? So AI limitations. Models can only repeat what they're trained on. I'm sure most people in this room understand that when you're using a model and its training data set stops in 2024, anything that happens after 2024 is not in its realm. It doesn't know it. So if you have a model that was trained on calculus and you're asking it basic arithmetic questions, it's not going to answer them very well. So the training set determines the ability of the model, all right? So as I said, it stops at some point. Now there's a lot of conversation on this third bullet point that models do think. They're reasoning models. They don't think. Models do not think. Let's all repeat that. Models do not think, all right? So yes, models do infer. Models do go through inference at 1 billion times a second. That is not thinking, all right? Thinking is reserved for the human at this point. Maybe in the future, models will think, but they don't do that right now. And as I said before, models don't care. Models don't have any emotion. Debbie, your model, doesn't care about you as much as you care about her. All right, AI tomorrow. All right, so we've talked about foundational, generative, causal. Let's talk about composite. All right. We as technologists have seen many, many technologies come, scare people, get easier, get integrated, we move on. It happens about every 10 years. We have some big motion, the internet comes out, AI explodes, all this different kind of stuff, and it's very predictable. So what's going to happen is that foundational AI, generative AI, causal AI are all going to blend together, all right? We see that happening today. We see smart young people, and some older people too, I suppose, taking different AI environments and stacking them together. And they're working really well. So you can have generative AI generate some really interesting text and ideas and concepts. You can have symbolic AI take that result and run it through the rules. So you have a probabilistic technology and a deterministic technology coming together. And if you need that answer to be 100% correct, that works really well. So you can have generative AI, symbolic AI, causal AI, and you can stack them any way you want. So we're now seeing some bright developers saying, okay, I'm going to integrate this large language model with this causal engine. I'm going to integrate this Markov model with this GenAI environment. It's happening all over the place. But it's all one-off, roll your own kind of activities. I think that's a 60s terminology. Most people don't get that one anymore. But causal AI and all these composite AIs are coming together. So we talked earlier about agents. God, I'm over time. All right, sorry, I'll go faster. So we talked about agents. We have built simple agents, single step, usually one model, intelligent agents, multi-step, multi-agent, and polymorphic. This is the most interesting one on this slide anyway. So we built an agent that would build agents. So we told the agent we wanted to have a string of agents to do, we were focused on travel. Book airfare, book hotels, watch for airfare cancellations and changes and things like that. So the agent actually built those downstream agents, and the first time through it built about 40% of the functionality. So we thought that was a win. That was pretty good. So we worked on it over a year, and we got it to a point of where the agents, the mother agents, or whatever you want to call it, could build the downstream agents at about 80%. So I don't really see a lot of people talking about this right now from Microsoft and the other vendors, but it's going to happen. I mean, if we could do it at EY, pretty much anybody who's smart with a lot of money can do it. Practical AI use cases, we're going to give them the slides, right? Okay, so don't worry about taking pictures or writing this stuff down. You'll get the slides. All right, so what do we see out there? Models for every organization, actually many models for every organization. We actually at EY built our own domain language model in the tax area. You need 7 billion words in an area to build a model, and anybody can do it. Just depends on if you have time, patience, and money to do it. We talked about nested prompts. Those are context engineering, simple agents, intelligent agents, agents as virtual employees. We already see that. There was a young lady talking to me this morning on her second job. She works at Taco Bell. When you order at the drive-thru at Taco Bell, you are talking to an AI agent. You were not talking to a person anymore. And she was saying that she sits there all day and listens to people swearing at the AI agent because they didn't like what the AI agent was saying back to them. There's no going back, guys. It's that horse is out of the barn. So the really interesting thing that I hope you all take away from this conversation is that we're really not in an age of losing your jobs or AI replacing people. If you're smart, adaptable, and you can critically think, you will be using AI as an augmentation, not a replacement, all right? So really quick, I'll just give you a quick view forward. If any of you have looked at my book, The Path to AGI, Mark has read it. Thank you very much. My postulation, which is completely bipolar opposite of Sam Altman and Elon Musk and Ray Kurzweil, is that we are well over 100 years away from getting to artificial general intelligence. We all agree that AGI will be achieved when an AI interacts with you as well or better than an average undergraduate student. So at this point in time, Siri can barely get you to Starbucks. Siri doesn't remember who you are. Siri doesn't know what you want. So if a model doesn't remember everything you've ever said to it and treat you with the respect that you deserve, it's nowhere near AGI. And these steps, and like I said, you'll get the slides, so you can email me and say I'm full of whatever your favorite lunch meat is. We can have that conversation. But we talked about the ad hoc integration. That's what I was talking about earlier. So composite platforms will start to come out about just after 2050, agents, no-code agents, and then we move forward through that. And many people ask me, how could you actually come up with this number? Well, I went back 70 years, and I looked at what it took to get here, and then I looked forward, and it came out to be 123 years to get to where we expect to be. Now, everybody always brings up quantum computing and all these other kind of accelerators. Yep, I could be wrong. Absolutely could be wrong. But this is just my opinion, all right? So I really think that the message for each and every one of you is that you have as much interesting work as you want to do for the rest of your career. I've been doing this for 40 years. I expect to do it for another 20. This is not ending anytime soon. So if someone tells you Claude Code's taking your job, smile, walk away. It's not happening, all right? Misconceptions. AI will replace humans on a widespread basis. Not happening. GenAI is not the path to artificial general intelligence. We can have long debates about what GenAI is missing and why it will not take us to AGI. AI is for specialists and everyday people. We all know that's not true. And AI will outsmart people. AI is not that smart. It is truly artificial intelligence with a focus on artificial. All right, my guidance to you. I'm sure you've already started, and if you haven't, get going. Iterate fast, don't get upset about failing. Walk away from technologies that don't work for you. There's lots of them out there. Try numerous use cases and try multiple models and vendors. All right? I think I'm okay. All right, I haven't gone that far over on time. I'm not getting the hook, but I said this early in the presentation. Please do not open source. This will get you fired. This will make you lose your job for sure. So don't do this, all right? So here's my latest book. There's more 5-star reviews. I should have updated the slides before I sent them. And we've done all the Q&A. Thank you. And then I think there was one more slide that was supposed to be there, but it's not. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Give it up for John. So thanks to John for reminding me that we do have the vast majority of the presentations, not only from this year's session, but also 6 or 7 years in the past on the WIT website in our resource library. So if you do see a presentation that interests you this year, it'll be out there, and we'll send everybody an email with all that information. So where do we go from here for today? So we're going to break this room up into 3 sections. We're going to leave this empty for lunch, and they're going to set that up. Track 1 will be on that screen. Track 2 will be on that screen. Tracks 3 and 4 will be over there against the window in the parking lot in the front. So thanks, everybody, for sticking out for the keynote, and we'll see you back in one of these rooms at 10:30.